Good
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 13th, 2003 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. I am Joe Barnes, co-chair, and I will confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear. When I call your name, please indicate in the affirmative. Maureen Callahan.
Here.
Laura Dorfman, we know is going to be absent tonight. Reg Foster.
Here.
Jim Rosenbaum.
Here.
Dave Hera.
Here.
Jean McKnight.
Here.
And our administrative staff, Cecilia Simchak
Here.
and Lauren Spinney.
Here.
This is a hybrid meeting. We're convening live and on Zoom as well. The town's website identifies the items on our agenda. And we encourage anyone to who wishes to join in via Zoom. This meeting is being recorded and some attendees may be attending by video conference, although none of our members are. We've received supporting materials. Our members have received them. Thank you to Lauren Spinney. Just some ground rules which we encourage people to follow. We do this each meeting. I'll introduce each speaker, each member of the committee. After they conclude their remarks, we'll go down to a list of members, inviting each one to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Ask you to please raise your hand or be recognized before jumping into the conversation. Please remember to mute your phone or computer. If you are not speaking, please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you. And finally, each vote taken tonight will be conducted by roll call. Having said that, we're opening our agenda. Having introduced the members, I have no updates. So we'll move to the first item on the agenda. The town council eligibility determinations for our FY 2025 applications. Did everyone receive that or just?
No.
No.
It came to Cecilia and I.
Okay.
I forwarded it to you and Laura.
All right, so, I can tell you that, Chris Heath has, weighed in on our applications. From the legal point of view, he has deemed all three to be eligible as we voted. There is a minor caveat in the Linden Chambers and nothing that would impact our moving forward. Why don't I, at some point, maybe I'll forward that unless we want to get into it now. I don't think it's worth a lot of discussion, but if
Well, it kind of perked my curiosity.
all right, I guess it probably would, being a proponent. Let me find it and I will see if I can read it.
I have it here.
Did I
You do.
understand
Thank you.
at first that he had not responded, but he's responded orally, or he has responded in writing?
He has responded in writing.
Oh,
He
So-
had not responded at the time that I sent
That-
out the materials, but
oh, I
since.
see.
All right, I have one copy, so there's nothing that really would raise our curiosity around the tennis court improvements or the DeFazio complex fencing improvements. Let me read 3 or 4 paragraphs here, not a long message on the Housing Authority. And he prefaces by saying NHA seeks $5.5 billion in community housing funds to redevelop its 2 state-aided public housing developments, Linden Street and Chambers Street. Linden Chambers currently provides 152 affordable units for elderly or disabled households. NHA now proposes to completely redevelop the site, resulting in a construction of 136 units to replace the existing 152. CPA funding may be used for the quote acquisition, creation, preservation, and support of community housing and for the rehabilitation or restoration of open space and community housing that is acquired or created. That is out of CPA, bylaw. Given that the existing 152 units were not acquired or created using CPA funds, this cannot qualify as a rehabilitation project. Rehabilitation is defined as, quote, capital improvements or the making of extraordinary repairs to historic resources, open spaces, lands for recreational use and community housing for the purpose of making such historic resources, open spaces, lands for recreational use and community housing functional for their intended uses. In addition, the funds would be used to replace 152 existing units with only 136 more modern units. The application
No,
frame,
that's, okay, sorry.
it's not,
Now, prayer.
Wow.
no,
Go ahead.
I mean, that caught my attention right away.
yeah,
It's
It's,
doing more, more.
no, it's replacing 72 units with 136.
yes, and I reached out to Peter, so that Peter, being on T-Chalk, would have an opportunity. And he said that that paragraph is categorically wrong, so that doesn't impact, the bottom line. The application frames this as preservation, but since the site would be an entirely redeveloped, these existing units are not being preserved. CPA funds can be used to, quote, create new units, and the creation of 136 new affordable units is an allowable use of CPA funds. Therefore, I think it is important to make clear throughout the CPC's process that this project is one involving the creation of affordable housing, which is distinct from preservation, support, rehabilitation, or restoration. Finally, the town should require as a condition of any grant award that it hold an affordable housing restriction on the new units. So that is what our legal eagle has said.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Where was he last year? If it was the same project?
I don't know whether we asked her.
We didn't have as much
We-
detail.
Yeah.
So he just got the numbers wrong, which is, you know,
Yeah,
Probably give that to Reg if you don't need it. I'm
you,
sure.
you want this?
yes, sure.
Okay,
You can send me a soft copy. My.
Oh, I do see where he's pulling it from in the application.
Okay, my
So
suggestion,
we should
it's a
clarify that.
misunderstanding, you know,
So the application itself says the existing 152 deeply affordable units at Linden and Chamber are at the end of their useful life. And then later on, at the bottom of that same paragraph, it says this is a unique opportunity for the town to preserve 72 deeply affordable units. So I think it's just maybe clarifying what that means, because that is,
it's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And,
that's not a clear statement.
that's not to be, I mean, obviously, he doesn't have as much involvement as other people do, so. I think what I would recommend is either I can send an informal email, and he can correct his opinion and.
You should send
should
any,
go through
you
us.
should go through me.
Yeah, that's what I meant, of course I meant that, of
Yeah.
course, yeah. Or if you want a more formal lawyerly response, I guess we can spend some legal dollars on that, but I would prefer not to do that,
no,
if that's possible.
and I don't think it impacts the movement of the project going forward.
No, it doesn't, but it is very definitely a preservation project, and that's important. a part
I
of
don't
it.
know.
It doesn't, no, because you're tearing them all down and
Yeah.
building new ones.
No, we're not.
That's what it sounds like.
He misunderstands what the project is.
Oh.
We are tearing, this current application is related to tearing down 72 of the 152 units, and the other 80 are continuing for 5 years or more, and replacing them with 136 units, of which we are required by state law to, preserve the 72 that we're doing. So that's what we're doing.
I would just recommend if you wanna write that summary up to me, I can
Yeah.
pass that along,
Yeah.
because the only information that the town council was provided was the 3-page application, in which I would say that is not clear, but having sat through all the presentations and the conversations, it's
Yeah.
much more clearer.
Yeah.
But he just, I don't think has that backup
That's what I'm
information,
saying. I
so,
just
yeah.
think how could he?
Okay,
It's 100 words or less for a $80 million project. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
so why don't you send your clarification
Yeah.
to Cecilia or to
I'll do
Lauren?
that.
Okay,
Or
great.
both. Yeah.
Before the
And
next,
I'll copy the chairs also on that, if that's okay.
please,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. The co-chairs.
Before we go to the next item, question, did you get the signatures you needed in order to finalize Peter as the T-Chalk representative? Didn't we do the sign off and then someone else had to sign?
Just Laura had to sign.
Did that happen yet?
Yes, and it's with the town clerk now, so
Great.
we're all good.
Okay, good. All right, going to the CPC applications, status, discussion, due diligence questions. Dave Hara and Jim Rosenbaum being the liaisons, any questions as liaisons or anything you want to share? Anything that's happened between now, or between last meeting and now? No? Okay. Gene and I have been in contact, and I'm also thinking about in previous years, liaisons have managed to connect with the proponents. I know we've gone to the church last year and the year before, when the churches had applications, we met with the proponent, took a look at what the proposed project looked like. I don't know, I think it's a good idea. Certainly you don't have to do that. I would like to meet with Ed Olson on the DeFazio, have him walk us through, and also the tennis court. I'd like to see what's proposed there. So again, it's not a requirement, but I think rather than simply going by the due diligence responses, it might be good to do a face-to-face if you have the time.
I think that Maureen and I plan to do that.
Great. Good idea.
Cecilia, who would be the contact person for the tennis courts?
Stacy.
Stacy, I believe it's Stacy, Ed and Justin were on the tennis court. Let me pull it back up.
I have
'cause
it right here.
I
Is
used
there
to-
one,
What?
all three or just one of them or?
Stacy and Justin.
Okay.
Yeah, and both their email addresses are on the application.
So
Ed is on the fencing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's so.
Maureen, you know, we'll just send, reach out to them and see if we can find a time here. They're supposed to be answering this questionnaire,
Right.
but they've always done an incredible job without any help from liaisons in the past, because.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of staff member, Stacy and Justin.
They have a lot of the information already prepared.
Yeah.
And With all like the breakdown in numbers and.
And they may say, we don't need your help, but I think we ought
Like
to,
to see
that, which
that.
is fine,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
should make the offer, I think.
I will say that the due diligence questions, there are enormous number of questions that proponents are being asked to respond to, especially in the Linden Chambers.
Especially.
Yeah. So fortunately, Reg, I think that you also have Margaret and you have some other
No, it's okay.
support staff. You guys will get it done, but.
Yeah.
And I think we're fortunate that we have, from our end, we have Emily to provide some support for us in the financial questions as well.
And on our status, if we're doing a status update, is
Yes.
they're all clear questions, there aren't any ambiguities, they're working on draft answers. And trying to get everything done so we don't have to work in the week after Christmas, so,
Good,
and we met on it this morning, so I have a direct status update.
great. All right, Jean,
And just a comment, just since we're talking also about the Linden Street redevelopment questions. I found that there are a lot of use of acronyms in this document.
Yeah.
And despite my years of experience in kind of in the field of housing and planning.
Yeah.
Many of them I didn't understand. It was only until I read the finance report. And I said, oh, that's what that acronym, the memorandum from Emily Action Group. Then I said, oh yeah, that means that, but we shouldn't be using acronyms without, at least initially, saying, spelling it out, giving the abbreviation and then using
And
it.
to that end, actually, that came up in the T-Chalk meeting. And one of the action items are to create a master list of acronyms for them, which we are just gonna tack on to
Yeah,
this.
that's not a bad
this one
idea.
here.
It'd be good to have a legend,
Yeah.
something that,
So that will be attached to our response. And we also received a bunch, an update on, with the T-Chalk questions that got to us last Friday, I think it was. So we'll be answering, you'll see questions that have been maybe nobody's seen here before that were incremental to the ones that were submitted by CPC members.
okay.
And then
Reg, I'm sorry, go ahead, Gene.
if moving on beyond this, because I wanted to mention something.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
We talked about, meeting with proponents,
Mhm.
and I wanted to mention that with regard to Capazio and with Gerald liaison on that. I went out just personally to walk around to visit the site, and that led to questions in my mind, so I contacted the proponent and was told Ed, excuse me,
Olson,
Olson was the person to talk to, so he and I talked. And I just want to make sure people understand the nature of this project. All they're doing is replacing the fabric of the fences. You know what I mean by fabric? You know,
Mhm.
it's a
Yeah,
chain
not-
link
not-
fence,
not
a
the
chain link.
posts. Yeah.
And the posts, they will probably paint them, just because they've gotten a little scratched up over the years. But the posts are not gonna be replaced. The fences are not gonna be moved to new locations. No new fences are going to be put up. But I misunderstood myself when reading the application that there might be some new fences. No. So it's a pretty simple application. I mean, as far as the description of the work goes.
like you, I walked the area. What I could see didn't seem to be in disrepair. I didn't go all the way over near Pollard, near the trestle train tracks, but, I think that's why I'd like to meet with them, have them point out exactly where the fences are falling apart.
I had the same impression. What's wrong with the fabric, the way it is? It
yeah.
doesn't look that bad to me. And the answer I got was it was a certain number of years old. And therefore, it's at the end of its useful life.
Yeah. Okay,
So does seem to be the issue, whether it really needs to be done now.
yeah. Well, we shall see when we meet with him. Anything else on the tennis courts? How about how about the tennis courts?
We haven't met with them yet.
Okay.
I've not done a site visit either to see
Yeah.
the existing court.
The courts are pretty
Yeah,
bad.
I've heard.
I played pickleball, not up there because it's like,
It's terrible.
it's so bad.
Yeah,
We play up at Mills, but the courts are in really bad shape.
And we know that the kids
Yeah.
have not been allowed to play there the last 2
Right.
years. How did it go from 4 to 8?
Well, I think because with 4, they can't host any tournaments.
I understand that, but the proposal was for us, we provided design money for the replacement or the rehabbing of 4 tennis courts.
Right,
So I can understand going to 5
there-
because that's what it could,
so,
but why do we have 8? And I guess
That's
we'll
what
find
they're-
out.
but that's the whole negotiation and, what they really need or what the town can afford or what the CPC can afford.
Hmm.
You request the most you can possibly fit. That's what would fit there. Have you ever been up there?
Yep.
So there's the 2 courts and 2 courts, and then there's all, open land right next to the courts,
Not being used for anything?
not being used. Some student groups meet there and, okay, nothing that
So
can't
it's
be
not
replaced.
parking, it's not.
No, it's not any, it's just grass, just hilly grass.
Okay,
No wetlands.
what's that, Dave?
I said there's no wetlands up there. right?
No,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
It will be after.
I mean, for what I understand. They're asking for 8. But if they got, you know what I mean, if they got less. I think the least they'd want is 5.
I can
Yeah, I
understand.
think the minimum is 5 to host tournaments.
Well, tennis
believe-
matches require 3 singles, 2 doubles, so rather than have
So
one
then you
group
can,
wait,
then you don't have to wait, exactly.
I just don't know how it went from 4 to 8. And that was, the application from last year was
I-
for, but that's not,
Right, that's not that, you know,
we'll find out.
right.
Okay. All right, and we expect the due diligence questions to be answered and returned by January 1st, right? And then will the responses then be sent out to the committee?
Yeah.
Prior to the 10th, right? Prior to that first meeting of the application, whoever we decide is gonna be coming in on the 10th, but we'll have the responses by that time. Right?
I would imagine so. We can put them in the meeting materials that go out prior to the meeting, or if you'd like everyone to get them a little bit further in advance, we could circulate them when they come in. So it's, might be a little.
Yeah, I don't think we need all of them out, but certainly we need the first batch before that first meeting, right? If it's Linden Chambers, we're gonna need as much time as possible for.
I'd say after the first, maybe that first week, the first is what, a Monday, so by that Friday, we can definitely circulate anything
Okay,
that's gathered to give you guys as much time as possible,
Okay.
because I imagine what's coming from the housing authority is not
Is-
a quick 2-page read.
It will be robust. But let me ask you this, is anybody working between Christmas and, New Year's? Yeah, we're trying to get it done before that down week, the week of the 25th. So it could be circulated that week, if there's anybody staff to do it here, so.
Yes, I will be available because I'm actually, have a vacation planned for just a couple of weeks later. So that
Okay.
week I will probably be
Yeah, because,
somewhat have my.
of course,
hands.
it's a lot to answer, but again, there's a whole bunch of my people want to take time off between.
Yeah.
Christmas and New Year, so we're gonna get it done. We're halfway, 3/4 of the way there as of this morning here, so, yeah. So, I mean, I think that affects on who you wanna schedule for 11, the first meeting there.
yeah, well, that's to be determined, and that's coming up next. I know the availability of Emily was somewhat restricted. She had a preference, I guess, wasn't that the case?
Yes, Emily thought that perhaps, it might make sense if the NHA could present at one of our January meetings and she could present to the committee February 21st. So our later February meeting.
Repeat that for me. The NHA would present the first meeting?
At one of the
One of the
January.
Januaries?
meetings. She could attend either one.
Okay.
She could sit in on. I think she has an issue the beginning of February, so
Right.
she would like her presentation potentially to be our second February meeting, which is the 21st.
Okay. But she'll sit in on the presentation in January for sure.
Yes, and
Okay.
she is available on either date,
All right.
whichever date we decide,
That's the 11th and the 11th and the
with the 10th and the
10th
24th.
and 20th.
And we do wanna bring up, cause Lauren will be out on the 10th, on January 10th. I will not be able to attend any January CPC meetings. I have to be at all the finance committee meetings from a new job, which also happened Wednesday nights at 7. So on the 10th, neither one of us will be available. So there's kind of 2 options. 3 options. We can reschedule that meeting. We can move to town hall and I can get everyone set up and you guys can run the meeting. And then I can just pop over when we're done and shut everything down. I think I've done that before and that wasn't a problem. Or I could see if I could find somebody, a town staff, to just kind of sit and run the Zoom for you while the meeting goes on.
I am also an expert Zoom manager.
I think it's important that we have one of you two here for one of those, for all 3 of the meetings. Most importantly, Linden Chambers, but I'd feel more comfortable if we
Yeah.
had your support for the meeting. So do we want to change from the 10th to another night?
I probably can't do that. Because I have all these other town meetings and I've been holding both the 10th and the 24th in my team's calendars. And I'm not sure that, I would prefer if we could get another staffer on the 10th, if that's what it takes, if that's what we want to do. And I think we also have a slight preference for the tenth, just because it's the biggest and most complicated thing. And what happened last year is we had several more meetings on the project before everybody got comfortable with what they thought.
You're only gonna be missing on the tenth, right?
I will be gone the 9th through the 16th.
Okay,
So the
but
10th
as
is
far
the
as the
only
meeting is
meeting
concerned,
that I will miss,
the tenth is the only meeting you'll be missing.
correct?
Okay, and with Reg's comment, which I agree, I think it's important that, we have somebody here. And maybe it's not ideal, Reg, but I think that if we keep the dates as they are, we go with the second meeting of the month for Linden Chambers, which would be the 24th. That would allow Emily to be available as well.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Emily can do both dates. What happened last year is we had the first meeting and there was another 24 questions that came out of the first meeting that needed to be worked on. And we needed a couple, then you need to do the other 2 applications.
I understand that, but I think I would rather have a regular staff member here than someone who is an alternative, who hasn't done this type of thing before. We need a note taker. I think we need someone with some history of CPC, which is what we get with Lauren and Cecilia. I don't know whether if the 10th is not, I don't think the 10th works.
I am still able to do the minutes from the recording. But I.
You provided a resource, both of you, a resource at the meeting. So given the options, and I understand what you're saying, Reg, that there may be more carryover. We may go beyond the regular 1.5-hour meeting on that, the night that Linden Chambers presents, but I'd like to have staff in place. So actually going to the schedule of applicant presentations on the agenda, with which we are right now. I would propose that the 24th be the meeting for Linden Chambers, and the other 2 surround that. What do you think, Jean? Any objection, do you think, if we have, it doesn't sound as though the project at DeFazio is all that complicated. That might be the one to have on the 10th when we're here by ourselves, we don't have the administrator. Make sense?
Yeah, I don't see what we could do there on the 10th. I mean, I saw my calendar, I'm certainly available.
And make February 7th the 3rd, the tennis courts. We'll keep our fingers crossed, Reg. If we have to go 3 hours or something on that.
It's not a matter of the presentation, it's the follow-up. And so I'm sorry if I misstated something.
No, you
earlier.
said follow-up, but
It's not a matter of taking 3 hours on the first presentation. It's a matter of a number of questions getting generated out of it. And, even if we meet every 2 weeks, you don't want to have a fire drill at the end of.
well, we have February 21st. That's a CPC meeting as well, and that could be devoted to responses that come up on the 24th.
By the way, as a point of information, what is the school week the school vacation week in February?
I think we looked at that when we set the schedule,
Yeah, because I think we were trying to avoid Valentine's Day.
and I think everybody,
Good idea.
so it is that week, but all of the committee members at the time we set the schedule all said
Okay,
that I believe, I remember
Yeah.
saying it wasn't an issue.
so,
The follow-up for NHA if needed is what?
well, if we need it, we can go a long night on the presentation. If we have to follow up, as Reg is suggesting, we have a meeting scheduled for the 21st of February.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Also, I want to note that that was the date that Emily would like to meet and present to the committee
On the
Emily.
21st.
on the 21st of February.
Also, the T-Chalk said at mid-January meeting, that I forget what date that was, but I think it's the 9th to 16th maybe.
Oh, I have it.
So they would, be
Yeah, it's 16th.
probably reviewing all the answers to the questions that we submitted to CPC. They would be reviewing those first in their public hearing, their public meeting.
Yeah,
Is the NHA attending that meeting and presenting?
We haven't, Cecilia might have more insight on there, but we're expecting to, so we blocked that out. Because they've submitted a bunch of questions, which have now been folded in with these questions. And I haven't received a formal agenda, but the discussion they had at the end of the T-Chalk seemed to indicate that they were going to review everything that the CPC had done by way of answers and so forth, and conduct their own investigation into whether it's a good idea or not.
I got a question.
Dave.
Is there, the T-Chalk process is not aligned with the CPC process? It's completely independent?
They're confused about that as well. If you watch their meeting, first meeting, they don't actually know what their role is relative to the planning board and the CPC, and we're trying to figure it out.
The goal of T-Chalk is once the funding is in place with a project to monitor the funding as the project progresses. And then one of the requests that they had accepted, I believe from the CPC, was to just provide guidance on an additional, like, I won't say bounce ideas, but like recommendations from them. And so they suggested the questions. That's kind of why the T-Chalk questions went to CPC to then get sent out and not directly to the housing authority, because it's really like you guys could have said, no, we don't want them. We don't want to answer your questions, but I think the overall,
Their questions were merged with.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know. So,
And Emily's merged some as well, so we got 3 sources here going to.
yeah, and so how is their thoughts gonna be communicated to the CPC?
So Katie and I are in constant contact. So she's kind of the point person for T-Chalk, and I've been the point person for CPC and Town Hall. Just as they communicate, if they have any information that they receive, they'll funnel it through to me and I'll send it out, and vice versa, any information. It's really just a sharing of information at this moment. But they don't have any sort of, they're not gonna,
They're not gonna create an opinion and.
they could if you guys want their opinion, I would say, but it's really ultimately up to you, CPC, on the decision to fund the project or not. So there is a resource.
I think they plan to offer an opinion.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that would make sense if they're putting in all that effort.
And,
They seem to be filling the role of PPPC that would oversee a lot of the town projects for,
Yeah, but we don't have a project yet.
we don't,
Yeah,
well,
that's-
and it's not town funded, so they're not gonna, there's no PPC
Yeah,
involved.
no, I understand that. I just,
Well, I think where it gets confusing is there is a project in front of T-Chalk, and it's the 1.368 million that we funded for Linden Chambers pre-development.
it's already spent.
That's kind of what they're monitoring, and it's confusing because it's all phases of one big project, all of the projects are tied together. But their focus right now is kind of to see where the status of all the projects are.
Yeah, no, I don't
Yeah,
question that. I'm just wondering about the process, because there's already a process for the finance committee and the select board, those weigh in, right?
yeah.
But there's nothing on paper about the
No.
teacher.
So,
But those committees overlap too, so.
Yes, yeah.
It's a little confusing.
yeah, we're trying to kind of clarify all the lanes and everything.
the T-Chart meeting is on the 16th. We have a FENCom meeting on the 17th as well. We've been, I think, invited to tell them what's going on. they're trying to figure out a select board meeting, maybe, there's a board chairs meeting about that next week, and, you know, I know you know, your comments about staff are great, Joe, but I'm just, don't think that should be the reason that we shouldn't be playing our role here on CPC.
Well, you know, I appreciate your support on the staff, but I think the meetings that we have established from the very beginning are the most important. And I would suspect that those that are beyond our control, FinCom and I would hope that they would work around ours. The funding from CPC, I think, is primary for all the projects, especially Linden Chambers. And I think that that's what I would want to focus on. What is most convenient for the people that have to be at these meetings and available to meet our schedule. You're pulled in a number of directions,
Yeah.
Rich. I understand that, and you've mentioned some other meetings going on that surround this, but you know, I think my responsibility would be to what works best for CPC, and so, I mean, unless I can be convinced otherwise, I think that January 24th would be the one that we would want Linden Chambers to be here and make presentation. Gene?
I just want to comment as a member of the planning board that I haven't heard any discussion whatsoever at the planning board about any expectation of getting a report from T-Check at all. We don't see our role as delving into the financing of the project. It's the design of the project and you know who the project will serve and how you draft the zoning to achieve that and all. So to hear that, I think somehow they're answering the planning board as well is a surprise.
No, I don't think that's part of their,
Oh, I thought you mentioned it.
no, not to the planning board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I do remember, particularly the finance committee raising the issue, well, what happened to the money we already appropriated? And that seemed to be, as you said, Dave, the big issue that was in the air at the time. It was proposed to establish this committee.
These guys have done a tremendous amount of work. Right?
Yeah.
You've seen it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're planning and, you know, that's what's happening.
So Gene reminded me of one more thing, which is the planning board is going to be co-proponent of the zoning changes with the Indian Housing Authority, and I believe, unless there's something was spoken of at that Mobile Gene, that the plan is to notice the public hearings you've got to have in January, and then hold the zoning public hearing on the zoning changes in early February, which might take more than one meeting. And then we'll be busy focusing on that in February as well. Did I get that right?
Yes, my memory is the same as yours, and then in March to wrap up. Sometimes even after zoning bylaw is published, then there's hearings, and then within a certain framework, how you can't go too far beyond what's published. Changes are made, you know, because there was an inconsistency or something to the text before it is actually published and sent back to the select board for publication warrant. So that process will occur in March after the hearings. Yeah.
Okay, and I think sticking with January 24th for Linden Chambers also allows Emily to be present for the presentation. I know she'll be back again in February, right, as well but I want her to be able to view presentation by Linden Chambers so that she can also have an understanding of what's going on. So 10th, 24th, and February 7th. January 10th, the kickoff. Does it matter? It doesn't matter whether we have the tennis courts or DeFazio. Why don't we go with the the tennis courts first on the 10th and DeFazio on the February 7th.
I'll reach out to the applicants and make sure that they don't have conflicts with those dates.
Okay,
And then if there is an issue, we'll see if we can swap them. But hopefully,
My only other thought is considering how small DeFazio is and there is an overlap of proponents, is that something we think we could do in one night?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
As well.
and,
so I imagine the tennis courts will be a much longer presentation, but
put both of them on the 10th and keep February 7th for,
Follow up on the
Follow up on,
discussion, yeah.
Earlier rather than later, because otherwise it was said it would be February 21st, which is a whole month after the initial presentation.
That would make me feel a little less anxious.
and that's very important. We want you to feel very less anxious.
Well, there's a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we have to go a little bit later on the 10th to get both of them in, we can do that. Thank you, Cecilia.
The real CPC expert at the table here.
Well, we wouldn't have had that suggestion if she weren't here.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Which is a possibility down the road, so we avoided that.
Conceding your point.
All right,
With an atta girl.
housing and financial consultant, you had made a request, Reg, I believe,
Mhm.
to get some background information on Emily Achtenberg, and the scope of her work, the proposal, her resume, all of that was included in tonight's packet.
Thank you. She looks great.
Well, she's a very qualified individual, so we're counting on her to help us understand better some of the acronyms that Jean refers to. It does, it's a whole different language that we're working with.
Absolutely.
Anything that anyone wants to talk about with the consultant? I think information provided by Lauren is all that I needed, or you as well, Reg, is that right?
Yeah, I thought I mean, I read the report.
Yeah.
I think that's great background. The only thing I would ask is whether it stimulates any, besides the list of acronyms, a table, are there any follow-up questions that it stimulated that you should get to me sooner rather than later? Or, are we good with the list that we've got here?
Are you speaking of the memorandum?
Yeah, the one she wrote.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she compared, Lending Chambers with these other
Mm-hmm.
projects, is essentially what she did.
excuse me, if I could just
Lauren?
I just want to clarify that this comparative analysis was prepared before we had the current information on Linden Chambers. So this comparative analysis was done in the context of last year's application and the information that was provided last year.
Mhm.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands that this was done back in October. And so obviously some of the analysis or some of the comparisons with Linden Chambers that she made might change or be updated now that we have more current information.
It's almost like a little prep document.
It was
Yeah.
meant to give you a framework by which you could review the Linden project, this year's version.
Good, Jean.
There's a word that's used in here, and it's also used in another document in the packet. Fair cloth. The page 2 of the report speaks about, public housing will be funded with fair cloth to RAD Section 8 vouchers. What is that, fair cloth? Never heard of it before.
You want me to
Please.
give it.
Clarify.
So, Faircloth refers to Senator Faircloth, a pig farmer from North Carolina, who is literally a hog farmer, who had served one term in the Senate and was very conservative, and decided he would put a stop to public housing funding all over the country. And he introduced an amendment to a early 1990s housing bill that said the absolute number of public housing units, these are federally funded, subsidized, that existed on the date of that amendment that was passed is the maximum the federal government could ever do for the rest of eternity, unless his amendment was repealed. It set an overall cap, because it was a bad thing that was federally subsidized funding housing. And that's become known as a Faircloth unit or a Faircloth, subsidy,
And
and
the units that were built before the cap, referred to as Faircloth
so,
units.
so where we have 136 Faircloth units, we had 136 federal units at the time, I'm leaving out a little, some complexity, but, today we have 136 Faircloth units that are are now all being used for our federal public housing. And this is federal public housing funded under the original 1937 Act that authorized all this. And one of the things that our Cambridge Housing Authority consultants helped us to understand is you can call repositioning, you've heard this, you can remove your subsidy from the old 1937 program where you had 136 Faircloth units, that's max, to the Section 8 program, which we've all heard about and only really known about as, gee, if I have a Section 8 mobile voucher, I can go to, if you have a rental apartment, I can rent and you qualify, I can give you the voucher. I can only afford to pay $1,000 a month for rent, but your market rate rental is $2,500, then the Section 8 program pays the other $1,500. Well, we can do the same.
Something
Housing
called
Authority.
project-based.
That's
section.
correct.
Is
Yeah,
it-
you're getting
I know
there.
that,
Yeah.
and I have heard
So,
that phrase.
so when you reposition the seabeds in Cook, the 76 units there, and again, leaving out a lot of complexity, you liberate 60 of the 76, not all 76 of them, but 60 of them. They still belong to us. And we can take those 60 federal Faircloth units and transfer them to the Linden Chambers project and use that to make the budget, make it the 80 million bucks we need for that. And they would then subsidize, they continue on, they don't evaporate. It's like getting more federal subsidy because and it doesn't subsidize as much, but it makes the numbers work. In a way, and that's what Emily will explain.
Okay, good, I look forward to that explanation.
But it's Senator Faircloth. You can look, he's in the Wikipedia. if you
That
want
was
to.
exactly, I was
Look
thinking
him up.
exactly what I do when I get home.
So, it might have been South Carolina, I forget, we mixed it up with South Carolina and North Carolina, but that, it's
Yeah.
financial reengineering applied to public housing. That's what it is.
Good, thank you, Reg. Little primer on federal housing.
But this is why we need the acronym glossary.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll put some links in there too. I just thought maybe that actually should put some links in there because people like Gene actually look stuff up, and like to have links so they can do their own research.
All right, anything else on the Ackenberg?
May I just close out what Lauren said? I hadn't noticed the date of the memo. So that yellow highlight the ones where he said, I would need more information to follow up several times, because I was gonna ask, should we add that to our list? But then I realized this is written before she actually did get the numbers.
Yes, that was before she received the.
Yeah,
one
she got the
stop.
numbers and provided us so she probably doesn't need any more information, she could unless you've heard anything. Whatever she needed, she put in her questions that were
Correct.
merged in, right? That was all I'm gonna have. I'd like to get all, as many questions in advance.
She provided questions based on the initial application and looking at the one-stop,
The
but then
one-stop.
also she reviewed portions of your presentation to T-Chalk and then
Right.
added a few more.
Good,
So it's a pretty, I think, well-informed set of
perfect.
questions.
That's what I was fishing for, is we get as many questions as we
Sure.
can.
I also wanted to mention, Reg, that Emily was, had asked if, about sharing that comparative analysis with Margaret Moran, because she thought that it might be useful to her. So that was
Happy.
something that we, felt would be fine once the committee and everybody had an opportunity to
Yeah.
see it and digest it.
Happy to share both that and the paper itself, if that's what you're asking me as well.
I mean, I can send it to Margaret as well, but I wanted to let you know.
No, I'll go ahead and do that, and, because every time you send something to Margaret, she bills me for it, so I was gonna try to, in the loop here.
Okay.
But I think that's great, and if she sees anything there's a misunderstanding or something, we can get that back to Emily to review.
Okay.
Great. All right, next item on the agenda is the T-Chalk update. Lauren included in the packet the PowerPoint presentation that T-Chalk, yes. Volume upon volume, the beginning of the volumes.
It was robust.
Yeah, robust again. I suspect what we saw here is probably gonna be similar to what we see as a presentation, correct?
It's a point of departure,
Okay,
but I would be interested in getting comments from anybody who's had a chance to see it. Things, they're either too much or not enough,
How long did that take?
How long?
The presentation?
2 hours.
Yeah. that's-
With their Q and A. So it was like, half an hour or 40 minutes, we deliberately wanted to have most of the Q and A. It's all on the Needham, YouTube channel, if anybody wants to watch it. But their focus is not the same as the CPC. So we tried to guess what their focus was, which was, to kind of kick the tires on, are the numbers real? Do we have A+ consulting team working with us, that kind of stuff. We also introduced our special counsel, whose name is Teresa Santa Lucia. So, it's an additional legal resource that we've engaged to just advise us with respect to negotiating a developer partner agreement. And we also mentioned, it's been mentioned in this group before, last year, but, we are now at the stage where we have a design and we are, what you do is, obviously it's way too big a project for the Needham Housing Authority staff to manage. So you hire a development partner to basically put the deal together, provide all the financial guarantees, and then oversee the next 15 years of tax credit compliance that one has to do in order to get the $30 million of tax credits that are in the financing. And the board, the Housing Authority Board, did an analysis last spring, and of the several choices of going forward with the development partner, developer partner, we chose the Cambridge Housing Authority. So they're wearing now maybe about to wear 2 hats. We're in negotiations with them on that agreement, which we expect to have finished by the beginning of February. And that will be a lot of really interesting information for both the CPC and the T-Chalk, given their somewhat different missions here.
Did you say that the development partner continues in that relationship for 15 years or so?
There's a whole new governance approach that you have to put in place, because you raise money, you raise the majority of your money from investors, for-profit investors, so like Bank of America, let's say. or IBM,
Who then use the tax credits
who then
to give money.
form an LLC that has the money interests, or they have, the investors have 99%, like 9% of the monetary benefits of this LLC. And the Needham Housing Authority and the Cambridge Housing Authority is the development partner. And, form another LLC that's has a managing management. But the reason this exists is you have to flow through the tax credits off the, over the 15-year period to whoever the investor is. They have limited management involvement, but they get all the financial benefit. And this is an IRS program, by the way, so go figure that the IRS this is the leading source of funding nationwide for affordable housing development. And is very complicated. And there's a Wikipedia entry too. And at the end of the 15-year period, which is a payout period of the tax credits, then the partnership dissolves. So, when there's more, of course, but the key thing for is that we address the development partner dimension of it, and in that it's a work in progress right now. And also there's another slide where we put in sort of risks and benefits here. So there's towards the end, we put in before the major milestones, some stuff.
This was a presentation by the Housing Authority to teacher. Right.
Yeah, and so it had caveats, risks, and disclaimers, that you would be worth you listening to. We're going to repeat it again here today and next month on the 24th, but
Did you clarify something? If you said this twice, that T-Chalk and the CPC have different points of view. I mean, at this point, I don't understand that.
I would, again, think if you have time to listen to the first T-Chalk, meeting where they were, sort of their inaugural meeting, and the second one we did is all completely directly relevant to a lot of the stuff that the CPC usually vets and wants to know.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the things are pretty closely aligned. I mean, I've read that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it interests both the CPC.
Well, his deal is that I think the idea was that somebody needed to monitor things on the ongoing basis.
Yeah.
And I'm no expert as to what their charter is, and they're still, kind of feeling, understanding that, but maybe it's more oriented towards what happens the day after town meeting, should the town meeting choose to, make a major grant for this. And instead of CPC monitoring the project, it would be T-Chalk monitoring the project. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, I think that's pretty clear. What's still confusing me is now during the vetting process, we're both trying to do the same thing.
And it's not a design review board thing, because if the membership of the design review board, sort of like overseeing major projects like Cindy Williams or Emery Grove, and they're all sort of architects and engineers, and they're just making sure that the project gets built correctly from a bricks and mortar point of view.
Right.
None of the members of T-Chalk have that kind of background. They're a cross section of other boards and committees.
All right, well, I suspect then that your presentation will mirror much of what we see here in this, right?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we had a meeting, we're working on this already.
Okay,
And so my request to everybody is if anybody looks at this or anything else, or watches the meeting and has any areas you want to make sure we get covered that aren't already obvious, then to forward it to Lauren, so she can
okay.
bundle it up and send it to me.
Is it possible to get a copy of that? I'm a great paper saver, I mean, I like to have.
I'm a
piles
bit of a
paper.
paper generation too. Doing things on screen, I'm just, yeah.
We'll treasure this. Thank you.
All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda. Thank you for that once again, Reg. The financial outlook that you had in your packet. Cecilia, would you handle this and give us the
Yeah.
nitty gritty?
I have an extra copy if anyone needs it.
Alright, so I revamped Dave's original spreadsheet, really to focus on what we're looking at, what you guys are interested in finding out, which is do we have enough money to fund all the projects in front of us? And what does that do for the upcoming years? So I will note, one of the small adjustments this year that is unfortunate is this amount in red, the $440,000. So when we appropriated last year, at last May's town meeting, the amount that the state, so the FY 2024 appropriation to the general reserve ended up being $440,390 more than what the state actually gave to us. So, and they don't see a supplemental appropriation as we have seen from the state the last 2 fiscal years. So that left us with a little bit of a deficit that we needed to make up. So, we couldn't fund if we had, where's the general reserve? The 1.7 million was what we anticipated having. We had to basically refund the 440,000, so we really only have for FY 25 1.3 million. Dave and I have worked together and he has readjusted his estimations for the out years, looking at this downturn in what we're receiving from the state and anticipating it's not gonna jump back up to the higher amounts that we had been receiving in the prior years. With that being said, a little bit of good news. The 3 projects in front of us, we can fully fund DeFazio fencing and the Linden Chambers 5.5 million, and we can fund a little over half of the high school tennis courts with what we anticipate having. I will note that is using all of our free cash. Right now, the estimate of free cash that we will have is 2.4 million. That's an estimate. That's going to be an estimate until probably about February or March. But that is the estimate on the low end. So just so everyone knows, we're not estimating enough just to make sure we can fund things. That is what we feel very confident that we will have at a minimum. And then for projected projects for FY 26, we would be able to fund. And the only ones that I have on the horizon are from the town for a design for the Broad Meadow and Elliott Field reconstruction and the DeFazio playground renovation. And then the housing authority is projected, and I don't know if this has changed at all, but I think the last we talked was probably almost a year ago. Another $6 million project that we would not be able to fully fund.
So that's out of date. We aren't going to be going forward with that project the following year. So maybe that is something that we should also add to the packet that we send in the diligence up, the chart that we did.
Yeah,
Do that updated 5-year look ahead.
Yeah.
chart. Does that make sense?
yeah, that does.
Because I don't think that question was in there, was it, or I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
But yeah, no, that would be helpful. Mostly because we all know things change, but for this year's projects, this is kind of what we're working with. It does leave about $1.1 million unfunded. So just figuring out what to do with that, what decisions you all want to make on the funding side of things.
You
This
mean,
is what we're at.
will we be able to fund what's asked for the tennis court, or we won't be able?
No, you will not.
Mhm.
So if you look on the second page of the chart, I tried to call out what funding sources that we're pulling it from, and there would be $1.1 million left unfunded of the tennis court.
Hmm.
Was that
What-
second page on the chart, what you sent out? I don't
Yeah.
remember seeing one page. It's still,
Yeah.
okay, sorry about that.
What, Cecilia, what prompts us to only partially fund the tennis court, but fully fund Linden Chambers?
Your guys' decision making.
So the decision has not been made yet?
No,
No.
I just know
She's
one of
just-
the
because there-
questions was, can we fully fund
Yeah,
Linden Chambers? And this is how we can, but this is what would happen.
okay, because I know at an earlier meeting, you had given us a breakout that there was no way that we could really fund Linden Chambers completely. This would be 50%. This is what it would look like. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was, when I last provided, I think over the summer, that was the projections that I had. Now
Okay.
that we kind of know what money we've got from the state, I know how much is, a little bit, how much more is in free cash. We can fully fund it. Linden Chambers, but we would, if we did so, we would not be able to fully fund the tennis courts.
But Linden Chambers comes into the same category as Emery Grover, where we kind of fiddled and diddled here. Do we want to vote on 4 million, 5 million, 6 million? Do we came to a decision as a group, correct?
Yes.
Same thing here with
Yeah.
Linden Chambers. Okay, all right, just so I understood.
So we're not assuming that's what Cecilia provided by way of illustration is the way it's gonna come out.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, sorry. This is
Yeah.
just showing that we are able to fully fund Linden Chambers, but this is how much money we have to work with after the
Yeah.
fact. I can recreate this if you guys say I wanna fund it at this amount, I wanna look at this, I can keep adjusting these as we go.
Not that we prejudge this at all, but, for example, we could say the fuzzy fencing just doesn't need to be done this year.
You could say that you would choose not to fund it, and then it would be up to the town whether they wanted to fund it through the town's capital process, if they felt that it needed to be done
If
this
they
year,
felt
yeah.
that it needed to be done. And then, what they've asked for 17 could be moved to the tennis court project.
Yes,
Or something like that. It's just theoretically.
There is a sentiment out there that the town has not done its fair share of funding for some projects. Park and Rec in particular continues to come to CPC, and the town has not stepped up enough to take on its responsibility. And I think it's even become more obvious with the fact that I think there's a great deal of money in the bank here, in the town funding. I mean, they've got money to spend.
for capital projects, if there were preliminary recommendations at one of the last two select board meetings, I don't remember which one, but the full capital request is not able to be funded at the current time, so they're working out priorities right now.
Okay. And by this going forward, it doesn't bankrupt us going forward with projects in the future.
No, especially, I'm not sure when the next housing authority request is, but because of the limitations in some of the buckets and I don't have free cash projections for the out years,
Yeah,
it does not, we would, because I also assumed in this that we would continue funding community housing reserve at 22% instead of 11.
good.
If I may make a suggestion.
Mr. Foster,
So we have a lot of new members this year. And speaking of acronyms, another thing that is perpetually confusing, even to me, is what Cecilia just said about free cash and estimation and so forth and so on. And I love your new format, this will make it much easier. But would it be appropriate, maybe since of the meeting on the 10th, to have a sort of tutorial of how it works? Because I heard having listened to it 5 or 7 times in a row from Cecilia and Dave Davidson, I understood what she said about free cash. And that meant, and what it meant to me, and I'm just gonna practice what's in it, is if you don't, there's a process where every fiscal year, what's left over unspent drops into something called free cash, which is limbo land. And you don't know what's gonna happen to it until the Department of Revenue gets back to you, usually in November, and says, oh, here it is again, and this is how much money you have. And I don't, it sort of goes into this black box. Some of our money goes into that black box, is not available, and then pops out of the other end of the black box, is how I come to think of it. And Cecilia then says, I made the best guesstimate I could over the summer, but you probably got the results sometime in the last month or so from Department of Revenue. And we actually have that much in free cash in the blue down there, 2.4 million. And therefore there is more money than we were projecting last spring that we might have to be able to do, fund projects. So, training is all I'm sort of suggesting, certainly a refresher course. to
Yeah.
me.
I could draft up something. I wouldn't be able to present anything
not-
on
you're
the
not- I
tenth,
forgot that, yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I could definitely draft something up that I think could also provide some assistance, and then I'm always available if any of you want to call and ask any questions. Not the next 2 weeks, but after that, I'm definitely available. I'll be on the road for the next 2 weeks, so.
Okay,
At some point between now and
But
I
yeah,
think town meeting, I don't
absolutely.
think it's urgent right now here.
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, next item on the agenda, thank you, Cecilia, the code of conduct that, we asked the, town council to take a look at. And I think it was clarified, Jean, do you have a chance to take a look? You were the one that,
Yeah, it looked fine, except, I mentioned, I think this was in the original draft too, and should have been commented on, the our select board is referred to twice in the first paragraph as the select committee.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, who wrote that? I mean, everybody knows it's select board,
okay,
but that should be changed. But, my questions had to do with, the town's policy as far as approaching town council for an opinion. And where, under what circumstances can an individual do that without getting permission? And this clarified that issue.
with the clarification, does everyone feel comfortable with, endorsing and us, adopting the code of conduct?
Well, Chris Heap actually added language after this went out. So I redlined what we talked about at the last meeting. And then Chris Heap since suggested in section 2.2 that we add.
Is it in the draft that's before us?
It is not because we received it after the draft went out to the committee.
Okay,
And I also have some questions and comments too.
Okay. So
Section 2.4, is that what you said?
section 2.2,
2.
where we have that red line, where we changed it to refrain from discussion of agenda topics and matters within the Community Preservation Committee's jurisdiction with more than 3 other members we were proposing. And then he added either at the same time or serially outside of a public meeting, just to be more clear.
Yes.
That was one of my comments too. It didn't address serial communications, which is no. But I had a three, 4. I think this is much better. I mean, obviously, we count everything that pretty much was said last time around here, so.
Well, the only other revision was a suggestion that you made to 2.3, which is in there as a red lined section. So,
That's another thing. It's not quite, I think, right.
Okay.
But would you, Mr. Chair, like me to go over that now or?
yeah, let's see if we can, clean it up and reach a decision tonight and put it away. So go ahead, yes.
So on 2.2, we are a committee of 9, so it seems to me, I don't know where 3 members come from. I think it sort of should be 4, it might be worded that it's really a quorum of the members is what the public meeting law, open meeting law says, is you can't, you can't do serial communication or any other kind of communication, emails or anything. Or just having lunch and talking about community matters, if it's a quorum. But you can confer one-on-one here outside.
well, Reg, is it perhaps that this document is, you look at it from the perspective as the member who's signing this code, saying, I agree to this. And if one person is agreeing not to confer with more than 3 other members,
That would have been 4.
that would be 4, which would be less
Yeah.
than the 5 quorum. So if you
Okay.
view it from that
I
perspective,
didn't
then I
read it
think,
that way, so okay, I see what you're saying. And then the second on 2.3. This is, great, but, I'm out there being a proponent, any proponent, let's pick on a Parks and Rec proponent or something like that. Trying to convince people that it's a good idea for the CPC to approve. Our application, or if I was a Parks and Rec person here. And I think it's not quite worded right. I mean, if you're, if a proponent, if a member of the committee also is a proponent of a particular,
That's their
application,
job,
their job is to go out there and advocate for it.
exactly.
Right.
And I think that's what's meant by, with the exception of members work within their respective boards and commissions.
Yeah,
But I don't do it. I propone it to the planning board. And that's not, I spent, I proponed to the CCHOC. I was at the Democratic Town Committee the other day, making, it's much more.
I think what it's saying is when you say,
I
when
know
you're,
what it's
yeah,
intended,
when you're in front of the or when you're in front of the planning board, you're there on behalf of the housing authority, not on behalf of CPC.
But I'm not, well, again, I'm just telling you. I think it's not quite right. And then on 3.8.
You say not quite right, you're saying you don't necessarily agree with it?
No, I know what it's trying to say. I don't think it's worded quite right. And then on 3.8, I just, you can, having town council, this is not what is in the ethics training. Let's just put it that we're required all to take ethics training every 2 years. So I've done it 8 times, I think, in 15 years or something like that. And you don't run the town council, town council only bills time to the town when something is brought to town council. What is the requirement is that if there's a conflict of interest, that there is a obligation to disclose that conflict of interest. So let's just say, come up with well, I'm not gonna use an example. And then you disclose it, the committee that you're in, you can consent or can, say you can go forward, having disclosed that conflict of interest, or can decide that you have to recuse yourself, ask you to recuse yourself, and that's what you then must do. So I'm a little confused why that's not in here. And I know how hard it is to get turnaround from town council on everything. I think my recommendation would be to sort of do it the way the ethics training basically describes it here, not running for written opinion of town council at $200 an hour, whatever he's charging us every time something comes up here.
You mean to insert a paragraph, and right out of the, ethics training
or just
material?
paraphrase what the actual guidance is in the ethics training is all I'm trying to say. And then on 4.1, or somewhere else, I mean, I think we are unique in that we have a role with our liaisons. Our process has always been that members of, go out and help, particularly applicants who haven't done this before. And I think it would be great to have a section on the conduct outside of meetings that covers what is expected and permitted and authorized as a liaison here.
I think we're really getting into the weeds here.
I think it's sort of clear.
Yeah,
The intent is clear, I think.
and I'd like to be uniform kind of across committees in town. The select board has adopted this for the most part. We've changed the name to CPC. The historical commission has done the same. I don't know whether I want to recreate the wheel here. Sorry, Dave.
The Conservation Commission is.
Yeah. if there's anything, I mean, I can live with what's here. There might be some add-ons that you would like, but I'm, as a committee, I think this kind of guides us in the conduct that, we expect of each other and of the committee. I'm not disputing your changes, but I don't think that they're, of the type of change that we really need to add to make this a legitimate document that we could live with.
There is, of course, in the first paragraph, reference to the open meeting law, the public records law, campaign finance.
Yeah.
And it says members are expected to familiarize themselves with it, adhere to both, they're both, you know.
Yeah,
But it's very
It's
complicated.
not meant to
I mean,
ignore.
this, we're supposed to, adhere to the municipal records retention schedule. And that is 126 pages long, and I haven't read it.
I haven't either. Okay, I was gonna ask,
And it
is it
addresses
simple?
the,
Just say 7
That's why you
years.
say you were
Put it in. Okay.
but it does tell you what Sheffield constables should do, you know, so, I'm uncomfortable.
anyone else want to weigh in? Other than Reg, I suspect you would not want to approve this particular document. Anyone else who would not feel comfortable endorsing it?
As long as the change to select board is made and we understand this to be the reference together serially
Well, that will
That would-
certainly be added in.
be added in.
If you feel that the changes to 2.3 are not quite right, do you have suggested language?
I could send that, I have chicken scratches now, but I mean, if Chris Keefe has 2 more changes to make, and my question again is, can we get that draft, and I will send you my, suggestions, and is there a hurry to do this in this meeting here?
Oh, so you think we need Chris Heap's input on,
No, that's
The-
not in it, but he has 2 changes, or something, the ones you just read, that he sent you after you sent out the draft for review in here.
it was just that one addition to section
One
2.2
Yeah.
About serial discussion.
about the serial.
And
Yeah.
what about the forum issue? Why are we overriding the number of people that we can? And why is it 3 members, not 4 members?
It's you talking to
That
3
is
members.
4 members.
Yeah.
Right, would be a total.
So I would make a motion that we, with the changes that have been referenced by Jean, and the change that Chris Heap added, I would recommend that the CPC adopt the code of conduct with the changes,
I second that.
okay? Any discussion, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of supporting with change? Jim? Aye. Jean?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Reg?
No,
Nay? And the chair votes aye. And we will, do we have to sign this one, the document, once it's been changed as
We'll
requested?
accept the revisions and then I can circulate it.
Circulate. Okay, gotcha, good. All right. Thank you, folks.
And do you want the members to sign and then send them to me, or the next meeting?
The next
everybody
meeting,
can
let's
sign?
do it,
I'll bring
okay?
hard
Just
copies.
just so we can put it to bed right now. All right, approving of the minutes.
These minutes look terrific.
Yes, I
So
recall these
exciting
meetings I
change.
attended. Well done. Why don't we take a look at each one? And we can vote in its entirety. November 8th, any changes, any comments?
That was one I was here for, so that was, I really didn't review the other ones because I wasn't at those meetings.
Okay,
But this one, there were just some very minor motion. Motion carries is throughout each section.
yeah,
it's spelled MOTON, so just,
Oh,
if you
jeez.
just kind of change that, I know that's very minor.
You're sitting next to the right person, by the way, here.
That's a copy.
Jean
and
does
paste.
it all the
Take
time.
minutes for when I work,
Yeah,
so I get, you know,
I've
Thank you.
quite a nitpicker on minutes,
Yeah.
but, I didn't catch that one.
So you mentioned motion or meeting?
Motion.
motion.
Well, meeting minutes in that also, it's METING instead of MEET. You see that,
Oh,
page 3?
I wonder what happened to my spell check.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And under the DeFazio section, there was a sentence that ended with from town council, just a period at the end of it. It was just left
Great.
open for family.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
These are very detailed and that's not easy to do. I
Well, she does it well.
appreciate you doing really well, really, really well.
No other comments? September 21st of 2022.
Should we accept each one after those changes are?
Or just as a whole.
All together.
Yeah, we'll vote on them all in its entirety with
Okay,
changes.
okay.
You weren't part of this, Maureen, right?
Nope.
Okay. Now, do we need, can Maureen approve the minutes? We need, or do we have a quorum? 1, 2,
No, you can approve.
we can
minutes.
approve, okay, and we've got 5 without Maureen anyway, so.
And she can vote
Yeah.
on
Minutes,
minutes that she wasn't here for,
Well-
she's comfortable doing so.
I
yeah.
always thought one could do that.
Yeah, yeah, you can.
And it's never been the practice.
Yeah, and I think when we were running real low on members, I had double checked with Chris Heap just to ensure, and he said, yeah, that's not a
Yeah, I
problem.
think you're right about that.
Otherwise, if a whole board turned over, we'd be in real trouble.
all right, questions and comments on September 21st, anyone? Hearing none, we'll move on to October 19th. I wrote down periodic updates on approved projects. And I don't know why I wrote it down. I think that was one thing that we had said at one point that was something we wanted to do. We get feedback. Lauren,
In fact, you developed a form.
we
for
did.
people to fill
I
out.
sent the form in, but you said that it was not necessary because town does it anyway. Town reaches out to projects in progress.
We do, because I have to report on them
Yep.
once a year, but if we wanted more frequent updates, absolutely, you guys can definitely ask, and if you have a form.
Well, there was a form I sent in last year. That I think it was at that point that you said. That's kind of the practice of the town anyway, reaching out to proponents or reaching out to successful applicants.
Well, having watched the meetings and doing these minutes, I think it was the timing of of the reports.
Yeah.
Cecilia was just giving input on the timing of them so that they came in prior to our annual report being due, so that they would be useful to us
Okay.
in preparing the annual report. I've already made one pass at reaching out to current project in process and getting updates from people. Not using that form, but I can go back and find that form and we can.
Under project updates and status reports, it says that I presented a proposed form that project applicants would complete and submit to the CPC twice a year to provide the committee with information regarding. I guess I just hope that happens. So we approve the minutes anyway. Any other comments, anyone? November 15th of 2022. Hearing none. Moving on to the final one of December 14th of 2022. Look good to me as well. All right. Hearing none. Anyone want to make a motion to accept the minutes of November 8th September 21st, October 19th, November 15th, and December 14th.
So,
Second,
Discussion. Okay, all those in favor signify by a voice vote. Jim? Aye. Jean?
aye.
Maureen?
Hi.
Dave?
Aye.
Reg?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well.
Excuse me, is it implied that with regard to the November 8th minutes that the changes in, typographical errors will be? corrected?
Yes, with recommended changes. You've got that. Great. Thank you, Jean. Did that take us to the end of the agenda?
Yes.
I got a question.
Dave?
What's the status on our other new members?
I have heard nothing. And I've reached out twice and have not heard back, so. We fly with the people we have. We just hope no one is absent ever.
Which board hasn't?
The moderator has two appointments and he hasn't. And I think there are another committee or two that are waiting for him to respond as well, so. He just lost another parent, so both his parents have died in the last year or two. So I think he's distracted in many ways. I'm reluctant to remind him again, especially having to go to town meeting and say something in front of the town meeting. He could thrash me in front of the crowd. All right, anything else? Any other comments, anyone? Anyone make a recommendation or a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Please vote. Jim? Aye. Jean?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Reg?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. We are adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.